All right, hello, welcome to our tech talk. We are going to be discussing our web application entitled Portfolio Manager. Hi, my name is Andrew,
And I'm Sruthi.
and this is our application that we developed with the help of our mentor, Shashank.
Our project is a web application that tracks financial portfolio growth. So a user enters in their information about their stock they bought, including the ticker and the purchase date and purchase price. Our web application uses free and open APIs to fetch real-time market data to store in an online database. We wrote the program to automate the API call to fetch the data and store it in the database every hour. Our initial design was on Figma, and we had designs to have two tabs, with the first tab being where you input the user information, and the second tab would be the graph. The coding languages and frameworks that we used for this project was Angular for the front end, including HTML and TypeScript. And for the middleware, we used Python with Flask. And our backend was a MySQL database to store our information from the user and from our API.
So some of the requirements we were using for our Python Flask framework, we just used the Flask framework and a couple of JSON libraries to encode and decode the data from the MySQL database. And we also have a couple of schedule libraries imported to help with the automation part.
How it works. On our Angular front end, we created an HTML form using ng model, and that makes sure that the user can input the data, and once the user submits the data, it gets stored into the database using our HTTP client in Flask. This is our Flask method that stores our data from the user into our MySQL database. From this data, it can be stored in another MySQL table that creates an empty array for our dictionaries of prices and time for real-time data.
So now we're just gonna talk a little bit about the code for our graph. So this code is looping through our data from our SQL library, and it's pushing a new line graph to display on our front end. This data also shows that it's fetching our data from our MySQL and pushing it to our front end to display on our graph. So we're using an asynchronous function so that when it hears a response from the HTTP client, it waits for it so it can access it and display the graph with all the data. And then also we parse and stringify the data so it's properly formatted. Over here is in our Python Flask program, and this is pretty much just having a query for our database so we can send the data over to our middleware or to our front end. And this is also showing our API call. So it's just allowing us to get the ticker information for stocks and then inputting that into our dictionary, setting it up as an array, encoding it and decoding it so that when it processes it, it's properly formatted. And this is just a little slide showing our API we use. So we use an API from Finnhub, and this lets us get real-time stock information about whatever stock we want to request. So yeah, it's pretty convenient for us, and we just had to use these sample codes to help us get the data we needed. This shows our automation function we also have in our Flask. And it just allows us to do the current price fetching from the API and lets us input that into our database every 6 minutes or every hour.
This is our demo video showing how our app works.
It says this is your application to track your stocks. We are going to submit Apple, the Apple stock, and it's called Apple, the stock security type, and so we buy 3 stocks at a purchase price of 150.21, and the purchase date would be today. And we submit this data. And if you go to our database, MySQL, you can see that now our Apple stock is inside our table with all the other information. And if we also check our stock price, you can see that Apple is in there, and it is set up with an empty array. And when our automated Python script runs, it is going to update a new price along with all the other ones every hour. For the testing purpose, we put every minute, so it should appear anytime now. Also, while that's happening, we'll show our graph display. So if you just go to our web app and click our graph, you can see this is all the graph information right now. So these are the timestamps, and it's just the price point, and we can choose to see which stock prices you want to see displayed on the graph. Let's go check out the database again. And look, automatically the Apple stock price was inputted, and it was input at 384 with that timestamp, and all these other stocks were also updated. So yeah, that's our application.
We learned many valuable lessons throughout this program that will really help us in the future with careers and other jobs. One of the main things that we learned was the different coding languages and frameworks associated with this project. For example, with Angular, we really learned how to implement Angular in the web application to make it look nice with graph components. And also we learned how to use Flask and the HTTP client to connect that data with the MySQL database and the Angular front end. We also learned a lot about how the industry works with deadlines for work to be completed within a set amount of time, and it really will help us in the future.
So now we're going to talk a little bit more about future plans and future ideas for our web application. So the first major feature we want to implement is a user authentication system. We want users to be able to log in with the password and username and be able to see their saved stock data. Another feature we want to add is a multiple accounts feature where users can have multiple sets of stocks and have them organized in different tabs just for easy use. And another feature we want to implement is a delete feature where users can delete stocks they may have sold and just be able to update their own portfolio in real time. And just these ones and among other ones in the future, there's a lot to do and a lot to be done. And with more research and seeing what the market needs, we can add a lot of features to this application.
You can contact us with further questions about our project or with other information at these emails. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn. Thank you for watching, and we would like to thank Code Days for giving us this opportunity to participate in this program, and we would like to thank our mentor, Sashank, for helping us throughout this whole process.